we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. Eddie Hearn has suggested Alexander Usyk fight Joe Joyce for the WBO interim belt so Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury can be for undisputed. After AJ versus Fury, the winner could then vacate the WBO, meaning that the Usyk versus Joyce winner would become full champion. Well, what do I think about this? What do I think about this news? Look, a part of covering the stories and being fair, fair and balanced journalism is about looking beyond one's self. I mean, I want to see the Joshua versus Fury fight. Moreover, I want it to be for the undisputed heavyweight championship. I think division needs it. I think the fight fans need it. I think boxing needs it.
I want that as much as you do.
But just beyond what I want, or what you might want, I understand where Alexander Usyk is coming from. I really do. I mean, no division, quite like the heavyweight division, has that air of spontaneity where anything could happen. Where, even a Joe Joyce situation might be a potential banana peel. A lot of people fawned over how Alexander Usyk handled Joe Joyce in the World Series of Boxing. And I don't think that those people are taking into account that fight that Alexander had with Joe was a 5-rounder. That wasn't a championship boxing match. There were no championship rounds in that fight. Joe Juggernaut Joyce, is the kind of fighter that over time can develop momentum in a fight. That you might have started off strong against this guy, but little by little, round after round, he can catch up to you. There is a question as to whether or not Alexander Usyk can do to Joe Joyce in 12 rounds what he did to him in 5.
And Joe wants that fight.
Joe Joyce has been calling for a sequel of their initial meeting in the World Series of Boxing ever since he battered Daniel Dubois and beat him into submission. His tune hasn't changed. I don't think that Alexander Usyk here today is as receptive towards that fight as Joe Joyce is. As far as Usyk is concerned, he's got bigger fish to fry. Moreover, I'm not sure he wants to take a chance with anybody else out there at this point. He's very close to becoming a heavyweight champion. And so long as he stands on his square, that could actually happen. That might not be what I want or what you want per se. I want to see the undisputed heavyweight championship fought between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. But, from where Alexander Usyk is sitting, he wants something else entirely. He wants his opportunity, or he wants that belt.
Does he want to have to go through Joe again to get it?
I really don't know. I haven't heard all that much from the Alexander Usyk side of things in reference to a second outing against Joe. Everything we've been hearing from Usyk is about that WBO title and about his title shot. Eddie Hearn has gone on to say that Anthony Joshua won't be held to ransom by Alexander Usyk. If they got to come up out of that belt, that's what they're prepared to do. But the solution he's offered up, if I'm being honest, is a good solution that satisfies what everyone wants, even if it's not when they want to.
Isn't a bad idea.
Let the two fucking guys fight. And then whoever the winner is, let them vacate the WBO title. Usyk can then pick it up, and those two guys can settle up in a rematch. Because in all likelihood, Joshua versus Fury is going to be a 2-fight engagement. But Eddie Hearn's proposition entails Usyk still getting his title shot, still getting his opportunity.
Regardless of whatever.
Really don't see what the problem with that proposition is. Not for Usyk. I mean, you keep hitting the gas on this thing. You keep driving a hard bargain, and they're going to likely vacate the title. I mean, that's what they're saying they're going to do.
They won't fight AJ for it.
Not if he keeps pushing. And if he keeps pushing, and AJ vacates the title, guess what might happen? Alexander might end up having to fight Joe Joyce anyway. Alexander and Joe are the number 1 and number 2 guys in the WBO's ranked standings. If the title becomes vacant, who's to say the WBO won't order a fight between them to crown a champion?
And you'd end up in the same situation.
Whereas if he plays ball with Eddie Hearn, let the undisputed title fight happen. Let all the titles be on the line in the first Joshua versus Fury fight. Do that. Receive compensation for it.
Then wait for the winner to vacate the title.
See about picking it up. And if WBO just so happens to order you to fight Joe Joyce, guess what? That's what they were going to do anyway.
Isn't that what they were going to do?
Isn't that what the WBO is likely to do in the event that the title becomes vacant? I mean, we see what's been going on at Cruiserweight. They didn't just up and decide to elevate either Krzysztof Glowacki or Lawrence Okolie to WBO champion at that weight. No, they ordered a fight between them. And in all likelihood, if the WBO title goes vacant in the heavyweight division, what they're going to do is order a fight between the number 1 and number 2 guys. That's Usyk and that's Joe. So it's pretty much the same situation. That's what they're doing at cruiserweight between Krzysztof Glowacki and Lawrence Okolie. That's what they're doing at light heavyweight between Joe Smith Jr. and Maxim Vlasov.
Ordered fights between them.
And if the WBO title goes vacant in the heavyweight division, in all likelihood, whether Usyk decides to play ball or not, whether the title goes vacant before the Fury versus Joshua fight or after the Fury versus Joshua fight, one way or another, in all likelihood, they're going to order Usyk to take on Joe. So why not play ball with Eddie Hearn? Why not play along?
Make yourself a little bit of money.
It's not going to cost you your title shot. It's not. It's the same situation whether the title goes vacant before the Fury versus Joshua fight or after the Fury versus Joshua fight. I almost feel like something is getting lost in translation here because Eddie Hearn's proposition isn't a bad idea. It satisfies what everyone wants, what Joshua wants, what Fury wants, what the fight fans want, and what Usyk wants. So what is it that you're worried about? What is it? You tell me what? What? Are you worried that Fury's going to end up beating AJ? Well, guess what? If Fury ends up beating AJ, and he's in possession of the WBO title, all that means is that now you're his mandatory, and you put Fury in the same pickle that you just put AJ in. That's all that means.
That's it.
In either event, Alexander Usyk may end up having to lock horns with Joe Joyce for a second time, except this time it'll be in the pro ranks, and this time it will be in a championship boxing match that goes for more than just 5 rounds. In either scenario, that is likely to happen. But if Usyk plays ball...
If he stays on good terms with Eddie.
Well, let's just say he ends up having to fight Joe for a second time, because that seems to be an eventuality more than anything else. Let's say he fights Joe for a second time. Let's say he beats Joe for a second time. Let's say Anthony Joshua makes it past Tyson Fury, not just once, but twice. You stay on Matchroom's good side. You stay on good terms with them. AJ doubles back, and you end up having the big payday fight for what would be the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world.
Yeah, I don't really see what the problem is here.
It's a solid plan that satisfies what everyone wants. It's a solid plan that deals with every scenario, every eventuality. So I don't know why Usyk won't just tag along. I don't know why Usyk doesn't want to play ball. I don't know why this is so difficult. I reiterate it. It feels almost like something is being lost in translation here.
We know Usyk wants his shot.
But no one is proposing that he be deprived of it, so much as adjusting when he gets the shot so that everybody gets what they want. Everyone will be satisfied. I just don't know. Hopefully Usyk comes around. Hopefully they realize that there's a way to give everybody what they want, even if it's not exactly when they want it. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Bob Arum has explained, Top Rank are not promoting Jamel Herring versus Herring-Frampton, which has been announced by Frank Warren and MTK, as there's a conflict involving Shakur Stevenson, whose reps have contacted the WBO, insisting his mandatory shot must be next. What do I think about this? What do I think about this news? If I'm being honest, there is a conflict of interest there for Top Rank because they promote both of those fighters. They promote Jamel and they promote Shakur. And they have a fiduciary duty to both of these fighters. A fiduciary duty to Shakur. A duty they would not be meeting if they so decided to promote Herring versus Frampton when their other guy is due a title shot.
I think there's some legalities involved.
I don't want to jump to conclusions, but ultimately, this fight between Jamel and Herring-Frampton, it has been a high priority fight for the people over there at Top Rank. They've been working hard to ensure that the fight happens, only so all of a sudden they decide not to promote it. The time when Shakur is hitting the gas on his world title shot, his world title opportunity. I want to say that I understand where Shakur is coming from. I mean, I really do. This situation is semblant of Alexander Usyk's situation, and, you know, Shakur didn't get to have that Oscar Valdez fight. He wanted that fight, but he never got it. Oscar so decided to move up. He's going to take on Miguel Berchelt. He's going to get put in the hospital. It's another story. But still, Shakur never got that Oscar Valdez fight. And, you know, the Josh Warrington fight, that didn't materialize either. Regardless of whose fault it is or isn't, regardless of what needed to happen and didn't, you know, Shakur didn't get that fight. He goes up to super featherweight. He's got a world title opportunity via the WBO, and he doesn't want to wait anymore. He wants to have a big fight. He wants a quality scalp, a quality name on his resume.
I like his energy.
That's what you want to see from a fighter. Shakur doesn't care which guy he's got to go through. If he's got to go through Jamel, so be it. Jamel, who is his compatriot, but better still, Shakur is prioritizing his career and what he wants. But I'll tell you something, in spite of Shakur's actions, I don't think he can get in the way of this world title fight between Jamel and Carl. Top Rank has so decided to leave this fight in the hands, the very capable hands, of MTK Global and Old Fish Eyes Frank Warren. And because he has, Bob's always had a way with the WBO, but so has Frank.
That's true.
Perhaps Top Rank had to sit this one out, promoting this fight, because if they did, it would be a violation of their fiduciary duty to Shakur. He's their fighter too, They've got to promote him too. They've got to push for him to get opportunities as well. And in promoting this fight, well, I guess they'd kind of be doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, kind of.
In any event, they have decided to sit this one out. But guess who's picked up the reins? Old Fish Eyes, Frank Warren, and the people over there at MTK Global. And Frank's always had a way with the WBO the same way that Bob's always had a way with the WBO. And because Frank's always had a way with the WBO, I don't think that the WBO is going to hit the gas on Shakur's world title opportunity.
I think he'll get the winner of the fight.
I could see that happening once the smoke settles and a winner emerges, regardless of who it is. I can see Shakur getting the winner of the fight, but I don't see him stopping it from happening.
He'll get the winner, though.
Which ain't bad at all for a 23-year-old kid who could very soon become a two-division champion after only 16 professional fights.
That's a nice feather in his cap.
Shakur has a very high ceiling, and I think sometimes people forget that. They get all caught up talking about Davis and Teofimo and Devin and Ryan and all this stuff, and they forget there's this kid from New Jersey, Shakur Stevenson. He's a southpaw.
Shakur Nafi Shahid Stevenson.
He's the fucking future. I think Shakur's going to get his shot on the big stage, even if he's protesting now. The winner of that fight having to deal with him is only a matter of time. It's an eventuality. Somebody's going to have to, because this kid is everybody's fucking problem. And finally, per tweet from Steve Kim on the 3 Knockdown Rule, Steve Kim's podcast with Mario Lopez, Eddie Hearn made a very coherent point. If a Spence versus Crawford fight was the type to do 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, it would have been made last year. In my opinion, once Fury versus Wilder failed to hit 1 million buys, it hurt the efforts to make that bout. And I've actually heard that sentiment expressed before by a regular old boxing fan. Me and you, that, if that Wilder versus Fury fight would have done astronomical numbers, that would have given PBC that much more incentive to see about making the Spence versus Crawford fight. But, they're not going to send their guy in there, take a chance like that, unless it's going to pay off, because the payoff is the safety net, that it was all worth it.
Win or lose.
Though for me, if that's the case, what that accents, what that denotes, is fear. Apprehensiveness. If you believed all in your guy that he's going to go in there and smack Terrence Crawford around as easily as he smacked around Mikey Garcia, Chris Algieri, Leonard Bundu, if that's what you really thought was going to happen, in spite of the fight maybe not doing 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, you'd still do it. That's if you felt it was going to be an easy night's work. But you know that it's not. You know that there's a good chance that your guy loses that fucking fight.
You believed he was going to win?
If you believed he could do to Terrence Crawford what he just did to Danny Garcia, we wouldn't be hearing about all this stuff. We wouldn't be hearing about, 60-40, 70-30, my side of the street, your side of the street. No, I don't know what he's doing here.
Wouldn't hear that shit.
Why should they worry about Terrence Crawford? Errol Spence Jr.'s fans say it all the time. The guy hasn't fought anybody. He doesn't have any names on his resume. So why should making a fight with a guy who doesn't have any names on his resume have so many drawbacks, have so many fucking hang-ups? He hasn't fought anybody, right?
Right.
Should be an easy night's work.
And that's what they like to say.
Not just Errol Spence Jr.'s fans, but Errol Spence Jr. himself and Derek James, his trainer. They have pretty much belittled every accomplishment that Terrence Crawford has amassed throughout 3 separate weight classes. They don't think much of this guy. They don't think much of his accomplishments. They don't think much of his resume.
They discredit him every chance they get.
So why should fighting a guy that hasn't fought anybody be so goddamn hard? Why should the fight have all these hang-ups, all these drawbacks, all these stumbling blocks, all these obstacles? He hasn't fought anybody, right? Beating him should be easy, but that's just it. They don't believe that shit.
You know what they want to do? They want to kill the fight.
They want to kill the demand for it. They don't want people hounding them with the name of Terrence Crawford. They don't actually want that fight because they don't think it's worth it. We're not going to send Errol in there to run risks with this fucking guy unless it's for major dollars. And if it ain't for major dollars, then the fight don't happen. It ain't worth having.
It's risks versus rewards.
That's what it's all about. That's what it is. I'll tell you that, generous estimates, I think the fight could do maybe 400,000, 500,000 pay-per-view buys. I don't think here and now, given what's going on in the world and the financial state for many people, that this kind of fight breaks 1 million pay-per-view buys. I don't think it comes close. But I do think, promoted properly, yeah, it could do 400, 500,000 pay-per-view buys. And that's a lot better than Errol's numbers as of late. I mean, what did he do with Danny Garcia? 225,000?
And what would he do with Yordenis Ugas?
You can't keep using the names of Canelo Alvarez and Manny Pacquiao as an excuse to put Terrence Crawford on the back burner. Granted, you'd probably do a lot better numbers with those two guys than you would with Terrence, but those two guys, they're busy. They got better things to do, better things that don't involve you.
Sorry.
Canelo's up there at 168 pounds, and he doesn't look like he's coming down anytime soon. He wants to unify the division. Manny Pacquiao has set his sights on a crossover fight with Conor McGregor, a fight that will bring Manny more numbers than an Errol Spence Jr. fight would. That makes the biggest and best fight that Errol Spence Jr. can have, the fight that would get the most attention. That makes that fight the Terrence Crawford fight. But even with that, people at the PBC, they're not likely to make it unless they feel it'll bring in upwards of 1 million to 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. And I don't think it'll bring in that much. I really don't. I mean, I wish it did. I wish it could.
But I don't think it would.
Ultimately, I don't think that's any excuse. Because, Errol Spence Jr. has made 3 appearances on pay-per-view, and not a single one of those fights cleared 1 million pay-per-view buys, or even 500,000. And you were okay to fight those guys, even though none of those guys was going to get you 1 million pay-per-view buys. Whereas with Terrence Crawford, you got all these requisites, all these demands.
Got to do 1 million pay-per-view buys for you to fight him?
You guys know why. It's because a Terrence Crawford fight is a riskier fight than either Mikey, Danny Garcia fight or a Sean Porter fight. To Eddie Hearn's point, that had the cross-promotional fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, had that fight performed better, that, it would have given the PBC more incentive to make more crossover fights, more cross-promotional, cross-platform matches. I agree with that sentiment, but that's what I've been telling you all along.